You can be the kindest, most loyal, and well-meaning man in the world, but if you don't know how to respond intelligently to certain toxic behaviors women use against you, you'll end up being seen as weak, manipulable, and disposable. That's right. Often, the key to preserving your integrity in a relationship isn't about yelling, withdrawing, or pleasing, but about maintaining the proper strategic posture that the moment demands. And the most dangerous part? These behaviors often seem harmless at first, but they're like termites, silent and destructive that if you don't understand what you're about to learn here, you could be sabotaging your own dignity without even realizing it. But if you stay with me until the end, you'll discover how to neutralize these feminine attitudes with strength, elegance, and inner power. And if this kind of content helps you see through nuances that few ever talk about, consider hitting that like button, leaving a comment below, and sharing it with someone who needs to hear these truths too. That way, you help us spread this message of male empowerment. Thank you. Let's get straight to the point. The first toxic behavior is more common than you think, and precisely because of that, many men fall into the trap without even noticing. First pillar, the silent game of emotional neglect. Emotional neglect is like a slow-acting poison. It doesn't kill instantly, but it slowly corrodes the bond. Many women, often unconsciously or by repeated habit, begin ignoring their partner, suddenly becoming cold, or belittling any gesture of affection with dry replies or passive-aggressive silence. This kind of behavior isn't just painful, it's manipulative. And the worst part? The average man reacts by compensating, becoming more affectionate, more available, more sensitive, exactly the opposite of what he should do. This is where intelligent response comes in, pulling back emotionally without creating drama, but making it clear that this type of behavior won't be normalized. That a man who understands hidden psychology recognizes that emotional neglect is often a disguised test, a test to see how far she can go without consequences. When a man responds with emotional armor, he doesn't crumble to please, nor does he play the game of chasing. He holds his presence, his routine, his focus, and communicates that his attention is far too valuable to be ignored. It's strategic, absence, not direct confrontation, that restores respect. Need a practical example? If she starts pulling away emotionally, a man rooted in masculine energy responds with a light physical and emotional distancing as well. He goes to the gym, pushes forward in personal projects, invests in things he's been putting off, not as punishment, but as a statement of value. This unshakable posture sends a clear message. If you pull away from me, that's okay. My life keeps moving forward. And that's one of the most effective ways to flip the dynamic, without saying a single word. That it's crucial to understand that the man who fully gives in to the anxiety of feminine affection disconnects from his own zone of control. That's when he loses his center, becomes reactive, needy, and starts being emotionally led by his partner's behavior. The solution isn't becoming an emotionless robot, but rather cultivating self-mastery, observing without reacting, feeling without panicking, and responding with consciousness, not impulse. Now, if she senses you're always available, always trying to please, even in the face of coldness and distance, what does she learn? That you have no boundaries. And where there are no boundaries, there's no respect. A man must learn to say no through actions, not just words. Stepping away to breathe, spending time with friends, investing in himself. These are all ways of saying, treat me with respect, or my absence will speak for me. That is silent authority. This kind of masculine behavior may seem counterintuitive to those raised to believe that loving means always being present. But love cannot exist without reciprocity. And where there's no reciprocity, a seed of doubt must be planted. Have I lost him? Only then, often, will she start valuing what she was carelessly taking for granted. And when that doubt is awakened, you're back in control, not through manipulation, but by reclaiming your position as a man who knows himself, respects himself, and stands firm without making a scene. And if you thought that was intense, wait until you see how passive-aggressive female behavior can make you question your own sanity, and why so many men lose themselves trying to handle it emotionally. Second pillar, the poison of passive aggression wrapped in soft words. Those moments when she says, "I'm fine," but her tone makes it feel like you just ruined your anniversary dinner? Or when she casually drops a "do it however you want," but you know if you do, there will be hell to pay. That's passive-aggressive behavior, a type of communication where the woman doesn't clearly express what she feels or thinks, but instead drops hints of discomfort, waiting for the man to guess. The worst part? Many men fall into this trap, trying to decode every look, every ambiguous phrase, like it's a psychological puzzle. But they're not in a game, they're in a minefield. The intelligent response here is both simple and powerful. Don't play the game. When you try to interpret, please, or justify something that hasn't been clearly expressed, you're feeding the cycle. Instead, invite clarity. Say something like, "I'd rather you be direct. That way we can solve this together." That's mature communication. That's emotional armor. And believe me, the man who demands clarity starts being seen as a pillar, not a doormat. This is where the hidden psychology of relationships comes in. Many women have been taught never to be too direct for fear of being labeled needy or difficult. But that creates a pattern of veiled expression. Everything becomes indirect, suggestive, emotionally manipulative. The man must interrupt that with presence and firmness. When she says, "Do what you want," you can calmly respond, "If everything's really fine, cool. But if it's not, let's talk." That shows you're not driven by invisible seduction, but by honest dialogue. That a lot of guys think responding firmly will cause fights. But listen, strategic coldness isn't aggression, it's control. It's knowing that if you constantly give in to her emotions, she loses the emotional leadership she unconsciously expects you to uphold. Being kind is not the same as being submissive. The man who wants harmony in a relationship must be a mirror of clarity, not an emotional punching bag. Want something practical? Start by not reacting right away. When she uses irony or indirect digs, take a breath, wait, and respond calmly. "Do you want to talk about this now? Or would later be better?" Just that phrase breaks the cycle. And you know what else? It positions you as someone with unshakable posture, someone who doesn't get rattled by emotional chaos. And that, believe it or not, earns you silent respect that changes the course of the conversation. Over time, the woman realizes she's not dealing with a reactive man. She senses she's dealing with someone who has emotionally reprogrammed his mind to not be steered by subtle manipulation. That's mental reprogramming in action, transforming emotional response patterns and creating a new code of conduct. The kind of conduct that reshapes relationships. Now, if passive aggression is already a problem, imagine when she starts using subtle comparisons with other men as a disguised way to undermine your confidence. Third pillar, the subtle comparisons that sabotage your masculinity. Few things strike a man's self-esteem more directly than a comparison. And even worse when it's subtle, sugar-coated, and disguised as a joke. Phrases like, "My ex was better," at that, "My boss knows how to handle these things," or "My dad was always more assertive," may sound innocent, but they carry a corrosive intent. The goal isn't just to provoke, it's to pull you out of your zone of control, plant insecurity, and blur your sense of worth. And if you fall into the trap of trying to prove yourself or justify your value, she's already won the psychological game effortlessly. The intelligent response here is neutralizing with lightness. When she compares, don't retaliate. Don't compete. Just look at her, smile calmly, and say, "Good to know. But around here, things work differently." Simple, firm, no drama. That kind of response shows silent authority, the kind of power that doesn't need shouting or explanation. Just presence, clarity, and confidence in your own value. And here's the twist. That response alone is enough to disarm any attempt to shake your posture. Many men grow up believing they must be the best to deserve love or validation. But a man who walks in self-mastery already knows that value isn't begged for, it's embodied. And when he's compared to someone else, he doesn't try to become that other man. He reinforces his own essence. If she prefers a different style, a different energy, a different attitude, she's free to go find it. But he will never reshape his masculinity to fit someone else's mold. Want a practical example of how to handle it? If she mentions another man in a comparing context, use strategic humor. Hope he's available, then. Is it sharp? Sure. But it's also a reminder, you're not here to be tolerated. You're here to be chosen. And the man who embraces that operates with high-level masculine energy. He no longer seeks approval. He takes his place with emotional certainty, It's at this point that many men wake up to one of the most uncomfortable truths in relationships. Women are not always aware of what they're doing, but you must be, because you are the one who sets the boundaries of what's acceptable or not. If you allow this type of comparison, the next step is open disrespect, and from there, things go downhill fast. The key is not to confront with anger, but to respond with clarity. Say things like, "When you compare me, you miss the chance to really see who I am." Or, "I'm not competing with anyone. I'm living my truth." These lines may sound simple, but they strike right at the foundation of emotional manipulation. That's what we call strategic coldness with class. It doesn't hurt, but it doesn't let anything slide. And here's a quick pause. If this content is opening your eyes to things you used to overlook, hit that like button and subscribe now, because we're just getting started. Let's keep going. Speaking of emotional control, the next behavior might be the most subtle of all: the constant attempt to put you on the defensive through quiet victimhood. Fourth pillar, subtle victimhood as a weapon of emotional manipulation. Some women, whether they realize it or not, have mastered the art of emotional victimhood. They're always the ones who suffer most, always the ones who tried everything, always the ones who were never understood. And the worst part? They often don't use yelling or tears to play this role, but calculated silences, sad expressions, and classic lines like, "You never get me." The goal isn't dialogue, it's to reverse logic. The man begins to feel like he's always the one at fault, even when he's done nothing. It's a reversal of blame. And over time, it clouds clarity, drains affection, and robs him of his identity. This is where intelligent response becomes vital. It's not about jumping to justify yourself or frantically trying to do better to please. The right posture is focus on facts. What exactly was said or done? What was the context? And if there's no clear explanation, you calmly say, "I'm not going to take the blame for something you can't or won't explain objectively." That's not coldness, it's sanity. It's protecting your mind from the emotional contamination that constant victimhood creates. That's emotional armor in action. There's a thin line between empathy and manipulation. And a man who understands hidden psychology knows how to spot when a woman is just repeating drama patterns to maintain control, instead of becoming her emotional savior. He positions himself as a partner who expects mutual maturity. When she plays the victim, he doesn't validate it by default. He investigates. He offers solutions. And if she won't meet him halfway, he steps back with elegance. Want a practical tool? When she says something like, "You never care about me," instead of getting defensive, say, "That surprises me. Want to explore what's making you feel that way?" Boom. You didn't fall into the guilt trap, but you didn't shut the door either. That's unshakable posture. That shows you're emotionally available, but not emotionally controllable. You're a man walking in awareness, not walking on eggshells out of fear. The man who deals with this kind of woman without self-mastery falls into an endless loop of pleasing, failing, blaming himself, and trying again. He disconnects from his own masculine energy and starts behaving like he always owes something. And the cruelest part? The more he tries to please, the more she deepens her role as the victim, because that behavior fuels her emotional game. And the long-term impact? Constant mental fatigue, doubts about his emotional capacity, even identity crises. He stops trusting his own emotions, instincts, and truth. He lives in fear of doing the wrong thing. That's the opposite of emotional freedom, which is why the solution goes beyond logic. It requires mental reprogramming, a deep emotional reset, where the man learns to spot toxic patterns and stop reacting like a puppet. And if you think this kind of manipulation is already destructive, wait until you realize how constant criticism, disguised as honest feedback, can silently weaken your essence. Let's move on to the final pillar, and perhaps the most silently destructive of all. Fifth pillar, criticism disguised as honesty that slowly erodes your essence. She says it's just a comment, that she didn't mean it like that she was just trying to help. But what actually lands are phrases like, "That shirt doesn't really suit you. It's weird when guys talk like that," or "Why do you still hang out with that friend of yours?" These small critiques, delivered like loving suggestions or harmless advice, slowly eat away at something sacred, your authenticity. And if you're not paying attention, you start reshaping yourself to her preferences until you're no longer yourself. The problem isn't receiving feedback. A mature man knows how to listen and improve. But when it becomes routine and always comes with a tone of judgment or subtle mockery, you need to activate your strategic coldness. That means you don't react in anger, but you draw the line. Saying, "I like it this way and I feel good this way," serves as a firm but respectful barrier. This kind of stance signals silent authority, showing that your way of life isn't up for constant renegotiation. Most men who keep adapting to subtle criticism don't realize what they're losing: their identity. Their zone of control starts getting invaded bit by bit, with suggestions, jokes, and disguised corrections. And before they know it, they don't speak like they used to, don't dress how they like, and even avoid certain behaviors just to dodge disapproval. That's not love. That's control. That's conditioning. And it needs to be broken. Want a direct example? If she says, "You talk too much about your projects," respond, "That's a part of who I am." If that bothers you, maybe we need to revisit how we connect. Is that harsh? No, it's mature. That's an intelligent response. Because she needs to understand that she's not in a relationship with an edited version of you, but with the whole man, with your full masculine energy intact. These veiled criticisms are often a form of emotional competition. Subconsciously, she may be trying to shrink you to keep control over the dynamic. And the man who doesn't notice ends up giving up ground until he's seen as bland, neutral, and absent of presence. That's why developing self-mastery is crucial. It's what allows a man to take in what's useful and discard what's destructive, even when it's wrapped in good intentions. And here's the kicker. A man who lives under constant criticism begins to question his own intuition. He starts emotionally consulting his partner on every decision. That makes him weak. And a weak man, emotionally speaking, doesn't inspire safety nor desire. What remains is a relationship stripped of respect. And without respect, love doesn't survive. So ask yourself honestly, are you adjusting small details, or are you dimming your light just to be accepted? Now comes the moment of truth. What are you going to do with everything you've just learned? Will you keep tolerating behaviors that drain your energy, chip away at your essence, and dull your presence? Or will you finally step into the role of emotional leadership in your relationship with unshakable posture, clarity, and self-respect? The choice is yours. And believe me, when you change your response, you change the entire dynamic. So tell me, which part of this video hit you the hardest? Which of these behaviors have you already dealt with or are still dealing with in your relationship? Drop this phrase in the comments so I know you stayed with me until the end. I won't accept less than I deserve. From the heart, thank you for staying until the end. It's rare to see a man go this deep into this kind of reflection. That already puts you a level above. Now, so this message can reach other men who need to open their eyes too, hit the like button, share this video with someone you trust, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. We've still got a lot to learn and grow together.